Thank you, Bobby. And thank you all for coming out despite the bad weather that we've experienced this morning. Hopefully it's going to get a little bit better and the drive home won't be as bad as your commute in this morning. And Ms. Rembold, thank you again for having me come down and speak to you today. And if you don't mind, I'm probably going to walk around a little bit, if that's okay. So when I first, well, actually, I'll give you a little bit of background on me. I started my law enforcement career in Bloomfield, Connecticut, where I worked 2 years. I was assigned to the Uniform Patrol Division. I had an opportunity to come down to South Carolina after my parents had moved down to South Carolina, and I had come down for several years to visit them. It was an opportunity at that time to come down and to get out of Connecticut, which I did. And it was actually a great decision because it's a beautiful area that we have here that we all live in. And started my career at Bluffton Police Department in 2007. I started off in the Uniform Patrol Division, and then I was assigned as the school resource officer at Bluffton High School, where I met Mr. Collar, Bobby Collar, and he and I worked together for several years there. After leaving the school resource officer assignment at Bluffton High School, I went back and worked in the Uniform Patrol Division. Was promoted to sergeant, became a patrol supervisor. I was then assigned as the training sergeant and worked for a couple years doing all the different types of certifications and trainings that we have to keep up with as police officers within our department. I then took another promotional opportunity to the rank of lieutenant. I became the patrol lieutenant for a year before I was reassigned to my current position, which is special operations. And that entails the school resource officers, crossing guards, the code enforcement, our 2 CSAs that we have that work throughout the town, or primarily in Old Town area, and all the special events that we do have in Bluffton, and we have many of them. So we do have some coming up in the month of October, if you're aware of those, which is going to be the Arts and Seafood Festival, which is a week-long festival that we have in town, and any other event that Bluffton has. I coordinate the contracts with the town and police officers if we provide security for those. So that's just kind of what I do right now presently in my background. However, though, my time spent as a school resource officer and presently in what I've been able to see as a common trend in what's going on in the schools, especially with our youth right now, social media is really the biggest thing. And I don't think it's ever going to get much better with the access that our young kids have to social media. There's various platforms that they use, whether it's the Instagram, whether it's Facebook, Meta, Twitter, any one of those, whatever it's X, they're all there for them that they utilize. And it's a dangerous thing if you're not supervising or if you're not aware of what your children are doing. So when we get any type of report in the school, whether assaults, whether it's some type of drug use or something, you can probably end up tracking it through social media in some fashion. And I don't know how many parents here today have children that have social media accounts. I would imagine that pretty much everyone does. No. But for the ones that do have them, they're something that you really need to pay attention to. So I would probably suggest, if they do have social media accounts, that you're aware and you're tracking what they're doing. Because a lot of what happens on social media, a lot of the parents don't find out until after the picture has been sent, and until that message was sent, and then you find out about it afterwards. I can go back to my time at Bluffton High School as the SRO, and I remember many a times we would get incidents reported to us that stemmed from social media. whether it was the fight or whether it was some type of picture that was sent that caused all kinds of issues. And a lot of the parents were saying, what are my options? What do I do? How do I protect, my children? And I would ask you, if you're the parent and that's your child that has social media, is it really that important to have social media? Do you really think that they need to have social media?
So they only get social media if we give it to them.
They can have social media, but you're the parent. So if you're the parent in your household and you decide that I don't want my child to have social media, you're the parent. Your house, your rules, sir. Absolutely.
The only way they get it is through either the phone or the computer.
If we're monitoring, right? If we're monitoring what our children are doing, there should be no reason why that should be catching you off guard. You shouldn't say, I had no idea that my child had this account. There's going to be evenings when you feel like, hey, he's not hanging out with me or she's not hanging out with me like they used to. Where are they right now? Go find them. What are they doing? Are they in the other room, on the computer, on their phone? Why do they have a phone? You can take that phone away. You can take any device that they have away that would allow them to send messages from them. Again, you are the parent. And we stress that all the time to parents throughout the schools. The parenting starts, obviously, in the home. You shouldn't expect anybody else in the schools or anywhere else to do the parenting. It starts at the home, having those conversations with your children. But we get those a lot. Pictures, unfortunately, that's a thing that happens. A picture of whether it's something as innocent as being somewhere, and then Bobby and I were just talking about this. Next thing you know, somebody's taking that picture. Somebody was at the beach and somebody's using it and putting somebody else's face on it or something like that. There's different things that unfortunately happen. However, monitor those things as parents. Keep tabs on all of it. It's definitely something that if you have that power and control as a parent in your house, then absolutely do that. Yes, ma'am.
What's your experience? Have you had some experience with pictures and AI? So we recently had a situation that I'm aware of that the picture of someone, and it was clearly AI changed to make the picture inappropriate.
Right.
What are you seeing?
So the AI is starting to come out more and more. That's like the newest trend that we're seeing. But yes, that's very dangerous because things can get manipulated, pictures can get manipulated, voices can get manipulated, things like that. Phone numbers.
The other thing that like the email that it came from, made up email, and so then it was reported. But I mean, there's only so much y'all can do to track these when they're not real.
They are difficult to track. They really are. And I can't tell you how frustrating it is when we don't know what's on the other end of that.
Yeah.
When we try to do our best to find out who sent that or how it is. But there's different apps on different platforms that people can send pictures and things. It's very hard to trace. But again, if we're having conversations with our children at home and telling them, hey, listen, you probably don't want to send a picture to so-and-so because you don't understand at this age what's going to happen down the road. And once they send that picture, it's gone. And we get a lot of that. And I also would get a lot of parents that would come to me saying, well, now that my daughter or my son had sent that picture and this person went ahead and showed it to several other kids, I want to get them in trouble. Do you know that the person that did send the picture to can also be charged, or also things could come back to them for disseminating that picture to begin with? A lot of parents didn't know that, and when I would say that to them, they kind of looked at me, funny, but it's part of it. We don't want to ever be in that position as parents. I don't know what the age group is for everyone's children right now here. Middle school and high school. But it starts very young. I can say that I've seen in incident reports that I've reviewed how things started as early as middle school, like 6th grade, as far as the social media. And that stuff, again, like I said, it's families have the ability, the mother, the father, whoever that parent guardian is, has the ability to head that off as far as their house and their rules and what your values are.
What are some of the most common dangers or threats that you're seeing?
Absolutely what we just spoke about. It's not knowing who they're talking to, not knowing who they're communicating with online and sending pictures to and talking to. And then if they did, unfortunately send that picture out, and then the sextortion, that's another one that comes out a lot. That person decides that, oh, thanks, by the way, I'm going to go send this picture out to everybody now, but you can give me $5,000 and I won't do it. That's happened. And there was an incident not too long ago where it made national news where that did occur. A boy did that, and he wound up committing suicide as a result because he was so embarrassed and from what he had done and the shame that it brought. So he took his own life. It's sad, but that stuff does occur.
So I'm in a household where we have no computer and my children will not have access to the computer or to a phone until they're 18. But many of their friends are going to. So what can happen to my children in their relationships with other children and social media?
So are you saying if your child's at someone else's home and they have?
I mean, they're going to have friends.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good question because I as a parent experienced that as well. Even though my 2 daughters right now are young, down the road, to understand that they're going to go into a home or a different environment that you're not familiar with, that could be scary as a parent. And I would say that having good friends, good people that you know that you've properly vetted as a parent and associate with should help with that. However, sometimes you just don't know. You know your environment, you know your home. You might not know that person's home that your child's going to all that well. So that might be those conversations that you want to have with your child and say, hey, listen, I don't know their family that well right now. It might take a little while.
So I guess what I'm asking is, just because they have a friend who has social media and access to it, um, and that friend can show them whatever they want to on their social media.
Yeah.
But it doesn't in any way draw my children to it. I suppose they can take a picture and they can put that on, but in no way can they connect my child. For example, if they're buying drugs on through social media,
Mm-hmm.
they can come to my child and say, "Oh, look, I'm buying drugs on this site. You want to get some?" My child can't become involved in that except through them.
That's true.
I mean, they can't create a connection between something negative that's on social media and my child unless they can access my child through social media.
So it'd be naive for us to think that they're not going to be exposed to these things in some fashion.
Yeah, that's kind of why I'm asking.
Right.
Well, what happens when they are?
Rely on what you've taught your child and what they understand are values and rules from your house. Your household should be able to say, computer, electronic devices are only used at certain times. They're not going to be in a room by themselves with a computer. Now, if that's happening at someone else's house where they have free access to those things and they happen to go over there, again, that's a different, that you don't have that control. That's another household. That's another family. They have different things going on. But they are going to get exposed to these things from time to time. I mean, it's the way of the world. Your kid, they're not going to live in bubbles.
I think we as parents would all like that magic wand, like that there is some magic
Yes.
prescription of tell us what to do to keep our kids safe. And unfortunately, as you
It is. It absolutely is. And again, with violence that happens every day in the country, everything that a child would actually, with the threats that get put out on TikTok, that's another one I think we didn't even talk about yet. The TikTok is a very big one where, there's certain, swatting and things like that these terms that these kids do to, uh, you know, make false reports of whatever. If you saw that locally in the news, there was reports of that. Um, whether it's a school shooting or some kind of a violent act that's taking place, it's a complete hoax. But again, you cannot look at it and say that we're not going to look into that and investigate it. It's a lot of resources that are used, but the child that is doing those things, that's putting those threats out, I mean, that will come back on them, and it could be, severe consequences.
So the boy who commits suicide, he commits suicide because he knows that everyone will see the picture on social media, or he commits suicide because everyone at school is saying, oh, well, we saw this or we know this.
Truly, I would not be able to. You'd have to probably be inside the mind of that boy. But I'm sure he probably was depressed. He probably had all sorts of emotions going on from what occurred. He might have even been harassed, bullied, things like that. All those things. It's a lot. So that probably all went into how he felt. Sadly, but
Well, because I'm thinking that if my child doesn't access social media, it still doesn't stop them from becoming part of it. So someone takes a picture of one of my children, puts it and alters it to make it inappropriate, like the one Ms. Remble suggested. And my child isn't going to the web to know whether anybody's seen it or not. So they're not concerned. So the impact for them would be that if in school everyone is talking about it, and then they're impacted by it.
there's going to be unfortunate circumstances like that where a picture will be out that it could just be doing nothing but a normal thing. They could be at a sporting event and somebody takes a picture, and the next thing you know, it's manipulated somehow. Those will occur. I would probably ask everybody right now if they've ever taken the time to Google themselves to see if there's any pictures of you or anything out there on the internet of yourself. And you'd be surprised at probably what you'd end up finding. Previous addresses, old phone numbers, things like that. A lot of information, unfortunately, too. Children decide that they want to put out about what they have, what they're doing. Sometimes it's just too much. Same thing we do as adults. I don't want to put my entire life story out for anybody to track and see what I'm doing. I mean, there's safety concerns that I look at when it comes to that. Yes, ma'am.
I wonder if that might be a way to sort of almost if I Google myself and show my daughter what comes up, I wonder if that would be a way to tangibly illustrate, how
Sure, it would.
it can be whoa, where did that come from?
Absolutely.
And just because I think it's challenging for a young mind to comprehend how far it can go.
Yeah.
Right? How far it can spread when something that was very funny in the moment grows legs.
Yeah.
Right? And then it becomes permanent. All I can think of is, my mom always told me, don't write anything down you wouldn't want to see on the front page of the newspaper. I'm sure you've heard it. Yeah. And did that stick in my head? And I'm just trying to think of ways that I can illustrate the impact to my child so that she can just sort of absorb what that actually means, And so that just crossed my mind, if I Googled myself and just showed her all the things that come up with me, do you want to see that later? Not that I have anything shameful.
That's a great example, and that's a great time to have that, parent to daughter conversation. Absolutely. Yep.
I think one of the things we tell them too is colleges that you're going to be applying to, they go check your social media pages. They see what you posted. See with your little solo red cup, not in very good position. And I think if you're trying to get a scholarship, but that doesn't seem to resonate. They don't think that, oh yeah, you're telling me that, but it does happen. And employers, I know my brother was just got a different job. They went on his social media page to look and see what did he post. It's out there. I mean, one of our sisters, someone was angry with her that whatever, and they posted a very inappropriate picture with her head on it. You know, they try to get off. I mean, that's what happens. And people, they're not, you know, that's not shameful to them that they do that. That bothers me.
No, that's everything that we're just, same thing, as an employer, if I've done a background on a potential applicant to become a police officer, first thing I'm looking at is their social media. It's one of the biggest things that we look at now. That's another one. Not just pictures, but how about posts? What kind of posts are your children making or commenting on different, platforms? Are they appropriate, not appropriate? I mean, liking something which probably shouldn't be liked, maybe. I mean, those are things that, again, it might be they think nothing wrong with it, but it might come back and show us that, hey, there's some red flags on this. So.
Can you talk a little bit about Snapchat? I hate Snapchat.
Oh, yeah.
Can you talk about your experience with it and why it's
So my experience with Snapchat, and Bobby and I believe that goes all the way back from the days at Bluffton High too, but that was the one too, the platform where you could put something out and they think that it goes away, which it does, but however they can screenshot it and take the picture. So it's still, a roll of the dice. I don't think that a child should look at that and say, oh, well, I'll be safe if I just do everything on Snapchat. They all, again, anything that they're putting out there someone still has the ability to take and use, manipulate. Sir.
What's the Bluffton Police Department or policy if they get a phone call that says their kid has been manipulated online or you see those videos where kids are getting into bands because they're engaging with them or something like that. A lot of parents that are trying to get the lesson by being in the band when kids get in there. So let's say that happens to your kid. Who do the parents call and how does that get rectified? What's the follow-up on that? What should parents do? Who should they reach out to? Is it you guys?
If they're looking initially to report the incident, obviously they're gonna call and report it, and at that point, we'll see as far as we can take the investigation as to how that occurred and who they're in communication with. Again, but chances are social media accounts; those are the first things that we're going to want to look at or ask who are they talking to online. Again, there's so many things, again, that goes back to social media. I don't think we would be in the position we are in with a lot of violence, a lot of the sextortion, a lot of things like that if it wasn't for social media. I mean, if you go back before social media, I don't think we had a lot of the issues going on because of that.
That's true. I think it's so important that our kids feel comfortable if they do see something weird online, whatever that they feel comfortable with their parents. We always keep that
Yes.
they feel comfortable having an adult that they see something weird or if there's something going on in school between a group of people that they you just keep that conversation.
Yeah.
And I also think it empowers kids. They wouldn't say something necessarily to a kid's face at school, but they would say it over. And there are legal for that.
Yeah.
And hopefully kids are aware of that.
It's a great point, and I'm glad you just brought up the bullying because bullying is a lot different now than it used to be when I was in school and everybody, I'm sure, here was in school. Because the cyberbullying is a whole other level. Because if you went to school in the time that I went to school, as we all went to school, there was the bully on the playground. Now, the bully is 24 hours a day online, posting things, posting pictures, making comments about your child. You can't get away from it. Even if you delete accounts and everything, they're still putting those negative things about your child out there. It's very, very damaging. So more so than physically being bullied. I think there's just that constant you know, I can't believe what was said about so-and-so, you know, last night. And it's, you know, the kids are walking around reading it as they're walking past your child on their phones. Very damaging. It is. It is a entirely different world.
On things on social media that I don't think they would say to someone. That there's some sense of anonymity that they're hiding behind the screen, and that it's okay to say it on social media. They would never probably say that to someone.
So what kind of peer pressure do my children face then when I'm denying them any kind of access to this?
Stay firm in your beliefs, in your home and family values. If you're teaching that to your son and your daughters, I don't really think there's anything that really anyone can question.
So I'm going to get the normal, you know, Susie's got a phone, why can't I have a phone? They say we're weird because we don't have this. That's what I'm going to hear, and that's
And probably expect to hear that, right? Because I can tell you when I grew up, I did the same thing. Well, my friend Mark, you know, my father would tell me, good for your friend Mark. You're not, if you lived in his house and you know, you could have those rules, but you live in my house, you're my son. That's what my dad told me. And I think having those talks and being interactive with your children at nighttime, after they come home from school, and you sit down and you ask them what's going on in their day, how is everything going, look for any little sign that would indicate otherwise. If all of a sudden they're happy-go-lucky and there's a behavioral change, and you notice that, you know your children. If they're not spending as much time with you as they used to, or they're not hanging out watching, you know, a movie with you, and they're in their room, or they're just being distant, that's when you really should start asking questions as to what's going on. Because they might not want to come right out immediately and tell you. They might be embarrassed by something. They might have done something. They might have sent a picture. I mean, you got to have those talks with them. If you don't, then something again could happen. Bobby.
Would you mind walking us through if Bluffton PD gets a call about a suspicious activity online? Kind of maybe walk us through what the parents may expect to have a detective show up at their house, what that means from an investigation versus a criminal investigation. We get a lot of calls of should we retain lawyers in these situations, like maybe just from your perspective, not a timeline, but you know, if you get a knock at the door with an officer, what does that mean versus criminal investigation? Kind of let the families know, like, if this happens, this is kind of what you can expect.
Sure. So if an officer got a call for service where it was some type of harassment, let's just say, and that's how the call is labeled initially. We make contact, we go to the house, we speak with the complainant. They explain to us that, you know, their son or their daughter had some issues with another, you know, classmate or someone in their school. At which point, on social media, on one of the accounts, there's been threats made against their son or daughter. We look at that, and obviously, from that point, we're going to get in contact, depending on the severity of the threats too. I mean, if there's a threat made against their life, or you know, we would obviously need to speak to the other family and explain to them obviously why, you know, we need to talk to them. You know, we're investigating an incident that was brought to us. Sometimes we'll, depending on what schools they go into, you know, again, having school resource officers, that's our first line to basically head it off, hopefully, or at least intervene immediately when we find that information out. So if we know that the two students go to one school and there was a potential threat and they were going to assault somebody after school or during school, or if they were going to bring something to school and we knew about it, we'd investigate it and we'd follow up at the school. Hopefully we get to the point where it doesn't even make it to the school and we can actually deal with it outside of the school, and that's any school. There could be follow-ups made, obviously, if there's more to it. Unlawful communication is a statute that's used for constant harassment. So if there is enough text messaging between one student to another, or one child to another, basically saying that, hey, you're this, and I'm going to do these things to you. If the parents say, hey, listen, my child is getting these threats, these messages from this other person, what do we do? What laws? Can we press charges? Obviously, the age of the children is one thing too, because we're either going to be looking at adult charges, or we're going to look at charging them as minors. But if that unlawful communication statute, which is any type of communication, whether it's text messaging, emails, excessive emails, things like that, we can contact the family and let them know that, hey, cease and desist time. If there's another one sent, this is the potential for your child to be charged. Okay, and make them fully aware of it. And at that point, the parents are like, okay, either we're going to do something as parents and step in and do the right thing, or we're going to allow the behavior to continue, and there's going to be a potential for a criminal charge. So, social media accounts, again, like I said, if we can establish that this person is sending those messages to this person, yeah, we're gonna pursue that. So those are all, again, real things that happen. And I know everybody's probably seen that from time to time. Yes, ma'am. For the adults, yeah.
Most of the time, I feel like you can stay on top of it because I can still have phones, but I will block them being able to download.
Yeah.
They have to come at me. But that's not always the case. So I'm just curious, like, if there's any ways to kind of look out for that and share that with the school so that maybe that's the parents or how that can work.
So we do the best that we can do is to keep with the times as far as the new apps that are coming out, or the platforms that the kids are using. A lot of our younger officers, believe it or not, that's to our benefit. And I know we get into the generational thing where we're talking about younger kids coming into any profession, but they really bring that to us, and it's very useful because they know how to get on, and they know how to see these kids and what they're doing on there. So I can navigate it a little bit, but some of the young kids that are coming in as police officers, they've been excellent at providing that information to us and helping us with that. But again, there's always something new. Technology is always advancing. Just trying to be as proactive as you can. But I think what you're doing right now by blocking that's great. I really like to think that a lot of parents are doing that. You have the control as the parent in your house to do those things. Because again, that's the stuff that if it goes unchecked and you're not paying attention, that's when the bad stuff happens. Sir.
On a side note, there's a great book called Anxious Generation that talks a lot about this, how his relationship with phones, how this is kind of the first generation from cradle to, and it talks about how, if they're taking a trip to Mars, you sign your kid up. That's kind of sensible. But one thing I saw at JP2, the middle school, they yonder bags, so they're putting them away during the day. Have you seen that in the public schools that are transitioning? And that's one of the solutions in that book is take the phones, they can be controlled. To your point, it needs to be controlled.
I did. And just talking to Bobby, before and we got together this morning, I think that's a great thing. I mean, that's especially if it's working, right? Because we can come out with all these, ideas or proposals, but if they're being abused and we're not holding them accountable for misuse of the phone at any given time of the day, because that was used a number of different times in the schools when I was an SRO, that they could use them between classes, but that between classes became in class or just whenever they felt like it. But if you have that in place, or if the school's doing that right now, that's wonderful. I think it's a great idea. Yes, ma'am.
Very important example. So the students, like putting mine away so that I can be in front of you and teach you and be the best example. Because if we're expecting our students to do the same, that's really
That's absolutely the best practice. Totally agree with you, because I, for one, can say that if you're setting the tone for the day as a teacher, and you're expecting your students to follow your lead, and you're setting that good example, that's going to be a good day. Absolutely.
This topic is so large and it's probably on our mind all the time. We can go at this conversation from so many different angles. Um, Brian was recalling a speaker that we had years and years ago. We just can't remember his name. That spoke to the students, and one of the big messages was college stuff. You know, making sure that your online presence isn't going to impact your future. I just think that all of us having these constant conversations, being aware, is at least a step in the right direction.
The more time that you're spending talking about these things with your children, the better you're going to be prepared for these things. Because I'd always said this in the past too, don't ever try to be the cool parent. You know, the parents that have done that in the past, it doesn't bode well. You know, you have a job and a responsibility as a parent to bring your children up with values and to teach them right from wrong. And I think when you get away from doing that, to be the cool parent, you miss that totally. Yes, ma'am. Oh, never mind. I thought you had a question. Any other questions that anyone has about anything? Like I said, I know you said, ma'am, it's we could talk for a long time on this stuff, but I don't know if there was anything.
Is there anything, because I feel like sometimes it's a slippery slope, you know, there's innocence going in, and then like, is there anything that I can share, you know, to look out for, like that, because I feel like it's a slippery slope. You think it's well intended, and then it hurts.
Right.
You know, is there anything that I can, you know, bring into her awareness, my daughter's awareness, to like look out for? That's like, don't go down that road, or that's not something. For example, they'll get random texts, right? She can get random texts from, you know, like a job. I got a job for you, and actually, it's really bad because they prank them back. It's terrible. They're like, they're totally pranking them back. But that, and so like, that's gonna lead down. You know, that could lead to trouble.
Right.
So there's can be this innocent intent, but what might be a red flag? Say, don't cross that line.
I think hopefully, you know, having confidence in your children, knowing that I can identify that I don't know who this person is. I'm not even going to respond back. Delete. Same thing. I mean, again, if we're going to talk IT things, you know, I take my IT training as well, that, you know, that the town provides us, and phishing attacks and things like that happen in your email accounts. If you don't know where it's coming from, I don't think I'm gonna necessarily want to respond to that. I'm gonna hit delete, or I'm gonna flag it and send it to IT and say, hey, not really sure what this is. But I think that it's great that if If they can pick up immediately that I don't know who this is, don't respond. Don't even get into it. Because I get them too. Delete, delete. Don't know you.
I think you hit a really important thing about that.
Yeah.
I think that piece where there's opportunity for a predator
Sure.
is when there is.
And you're going to have those bonds that you in those ties with your children, and I think that that's important because if you have those talks and you have this strong bond with them, they're going to know. You're going to know when to. You're like, okay, I'm going to let them handle because I'm confident that they know how to do this because I don't have to, be over their shoulder every moment of the day because I know they're going to do the right thing.
Have any advice about for us about making those accounts that we as parents don't know? And so how can we go out there and kind of find them? I mean, again, it's sort of a magic wand that I'm asking, but that's something we at the school discover frequently. Yeah, look, they have 3 more accounts that probably no one knows, and that's the one that gets in trouble.
Absolutely, and I don't want to contradict what I just said here either. Having confidence, but also if something doesn't look right as a parent or feel right for as a parent for you, be that detective. Start to go around and find out, like, if you got to do a little bit of snooping on your own time to find out, hey, okay, you did create this account. Why? They're kids, absolutely, but sit down and talk about it with them. Don't let it just go. Call them out on it. Say, hey, can you explain this? I had those conversations with my parents. Why did you do this? I found this. Ugh, you know.
Helps too, like when they're home, they have to have their, they can't go from their room at night, check their computer, they can run their computer, their phone's on, know all their passwords. So who's at home when they don't expect it?
Good.
And then you just kind of build that, find stuff, talk about it, and then helps to monitor
Yeah.
what they're doing,
Yeah.
especially when they're younger.
Mhm.
Middle school's the worst.
I don't look forward to
It
those
gets a
years.
little better in high school.
So we're seeing more and more of these fake accounts that are coming to us as school leaders. That kids are creating these fake accounts to discover difficult traits. So from your law enforcement side, how do you go about that? We just had an incident with some of our kids involved in this. Somebody was creating fake accounts, not our students, but others. They were connected to it innocently.
Using their name.
Using their names, but they had nothing to do with it. So that's how people are doing that, creating these fake accounts. They've learned how to do it. So how do you combat that from law enforcement?
When you say fake account, you mean like fake business stuff? Fake snap?
Yes.
Oh, okay, so it's fake.
Yeah, fake accounts that they can create, using information that they trace back to another student, a child, totally disconnected.
Yeah. We would rely on investigative tools that we have. And again, if it's something that we can't solve locally, obviously federally, resources are available to us to help us in investigations, which we have in the past. But it sometimes isn't just hey, I'm going to go to this house because I know this is where it came from. But IP addresses and things like that you can trace things to a degree. But again, like I said, to use what available resources we have as local law enforcement at our level. If it's beyond what we have, to have the assistance of SLED, state agency that has more resources to available.
Or the FBI. I mean,
exactly, or the federal.
The FBI is monitoring a lot of this.
Yes.
So we're aware of that, and I don't know if the students are aware of it as much, so they get caught up in it. However, we are seeing an increase in these fake accounts. We're seeing an increase in manipulation through AI. Those are the trends right now in social media that are concerning. Again, I've been in school leadership for 25 years. I've seen the full gamut of this. My perspective right now, that's my biggest concern, is kids have learned how to sort of cover their tracks a little bit better, and they've learned how to use AI for sort of inappropriate. We're grappling with that in terms of how to
AI for best intent, not its worst intent. But there's a lot out there that people don't know that it's doing.
Yes.
So the federal agents, the FBI is involved. So how much communication are you doing with them? If you at Bluffton Police can't monitor what's going on out there, how much interaction do you have with federal agencies, whether it's state agencies like SLED or whether it's federal like FBI?
So we would ask for their assistance, and we do have local representation from the FBI in our area and SLED, and that's nothing more than a phone call away. Hey, I need some help on this. Can you give me some assistance? What assistance can you give me? What resources do you have? That's how we get things done. And again, I think that's in law enforcement nowadays. It's shared information, sharing of information from one agency to another to assist with an investigation is very crucial, especially when it comes to gun violence or threats that are made against public officials, things like that. It's everyone has to come together for those things.
So it's reassuring me to know that there is a monitoring of what's going on out there.
Yes.
I think some of our students would be scared if they knew the degree of what some of their stuff is being looked at.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing, it's a positive thing, as long as there's that communication between agencies.
Absolutely, and we do have that partnership amongst the local area as far as sharing information. It's not uncommon to have a detective call us up and say, hey, can you tell me about this incident report? And by the way, who was involved in that? Because that's how you piece things together. Working together to solve it.
That would be so a parent was in that situation where they discovered their child, their account had been copied. That's something that I as a parent can initiate something with the police to try to.
Absolutely. If you're at the point as a parent where you don't know where to turn, then absolutely contact us, and we're gonna assist you to the best way possible. And again, I don't want anyone to feel like they can't, that immediately that if they contacted law enforcement, it's going to be something that's going to be a negative thing for you. Yeah, I don't want anybody to think that way. Sometimes you're going to need to.
Any other questions?
Do you have any resources that parents can go to online to kind of look and see, to monitor? I mean, we just said trust and verify. I never trusted my kids, but they didn't know about the IT part. Is there a way to verify what they're telling you? And if they have those 3 accounts, can you find out how to do that on your phone? Is there a place that the parents can go online that gives them a way, tools to do that?
I don't have a specific or particular resource that comes to mind, but I know that yes, there is ways that you can probably better educate yourself with information. It's out there. Don't ever feel like you can't pick up the phone and contact, the Bluffton Police Department, Beaufort County Sheriff's Office, any agency that you happen to live in, and ask for some assistance on gathering further information. But yes, again, but the trust and verify is huge. And if you're already doing those things to begin with, you're already ahead of the game. Again, and for any of the parents, again, that have said that they already have set controls on the phones, or give me your phone, I want to see what you got in your phone, you might get a little bit of pushback initially from your kid, but at the end of the day, they're not paying the bill on that. That's your phone that you pay for, and you're the parent, you're the boss.
What I do with my daughter, she does have several social media accounts. I have to be one of her followers, see what she is posting, sharing, and I have all her passwords. And
Great.
she knows up front I don't trust her. Just as a child, I know she's a teenager. I don't let her know that I have full trust in her because she's a teenager. Sure. But I do random checks on her phone. I take it from her and say, let's go through your phone together. And she has to go through every app with me. We are seeing who she's friends with, what she has posted, and we talk about things that she has shared. Why that may not be a good thing that she has shared, or that maybe something she said. We try to keep open dialogue in that aspect. I think we do okay, but there have been times where it's,
You're going to have setbacks.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So it is a slippery slope, as you said. It's very, very hard.
Well, hopefully you can gain that trust back from her, or she can show you, obviously, that, I'm doing everything.
Well, I don't mean it like I don't think she's
No,
doing
but
horrible things, but just,
you have your
she's a teenager.
suspicions. Yeah,
She's a
absolutely.
teenager. You trust them to be teenagers. Exactly, exactly. So I don't ever want her to think I have 100% trust, because I think it might make her feel too comfortable.
Yeah.
So it's always that question of, I'm not really believing what you're saying, so you need to earn that trust from me. So I know that might sound terrible to parents, but I don't know. I don't know. It's very tricky.
When she's on social media, she's on this with friends from schools.
Friends from school, that is a rule. She has only friends from school and friends that maybe she plays on volleyball teams with, or that she has goes to church with. That is the group. And if I notice someone's on that list of friends that I don't know, they're gone. And the
So
phone
what
goes
does
away.
she have to say to them on social media that she doesn't say to them when they're at volleyball game or in class? Or...
Just general chatting. Yes. Talking about things happening at school, those kind of
She
things.
can't use her telephone, just call.
Well, that's a huge discussion we have all the time. Why can't you just make phone calls? People don't call, they text. Or snap. That's ridiculous, but that is, I don't think I'm the only one that hears that. I know. That's pretty normal. Yes.
That's what I did. That's what I did. Yep.
Well, thank you so much for your time this morning.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me, everyone.